She whispered it like a secret. I still love him. And just like that, everything we built shattered in silence. No fight. No warning. Just the truth, slipping out like it had been waiting. She ran to the man who broke her, while I was still holding the pieces. I wasn't even supposed to be at that party. Tessa had shot me a random invite, and honestly, I almost ignored it. Work had left me wrecked. I'd spent the entire week buried in code that read more like cryptic scrolls than anything modern. But the way she texted me, "Stop rotting alone. Go talk to actual humans," hit a nerve. It was like she saw right through me. The kind of call-out only a real friend can get away with. So I tossed on a denim jacket, rolled up my sleeves, and made the drive across town to her place. The second I stepped inside, it felt like I'd walked into a chaotic little jungle. Half-drunk wine glasses everywhere, trails of candle smoke, and an indie playlist humming from some speaker in the corner. Most people were already paired off, huddled in their circles, laughing over old jokes, paper plates in hand like little shields. I gave a few polite nods, recognized some faces, and did what any introvert does. I made a beeline for the snacks. And that's when I noticed her. She was standing by the chips and guac, wearing this mustard yellow, off-shoulder top that somehow made her look like royalty without even trying. She didn't seem to realize how stunning she was. Arms folded, quiet, like someone silently wondering if showing up had been a mistake. No phone as a crutch. No fake scrolling. Just stillness. A girl standing there like she wasn't part of the buzz happening around her. I don't know what made me move. Maybe it was the way she looked at the room. Curious, but guarded. Maybe it was how much I hated seeing someone feel out of place. Or maybe, deep down, I already knew I was screwed. I reached for the salsa, glanced at her, and said, "Pretty sure this dip just broke at least 3 health codes." Her head snapped toward me, and for a second, my heart sank. Did I just come off as a total weirdo? But then she laughed. Not the polite kind. Not the haha, please leave me alone kind. This laugh, this one was raw. Sudden. It cracked the air open like a match to dry wood. That sound. It hit me straight in the chest. Raspy, genuine, a little unfiltered. That bad? Huh? She said, raising an eyebrow and grabbing a chip. Just don't blame me when you're up at 3 a.m. regretting everything, she added, taking a bite. I grinned. Oh, I'll hold you personally responsible. And somehow, we never moved from that snack table. We talked for hours like nothing else at that party existed. She told me her name, Lena. I said mine was Elias. It just flowed after that. No awkward small talk. No cringy dating app chatter. It felt like reconnecting with someone I hadn't seen in years. Her voice had this rhythm, sometimes teasing, sometimes low and thoughtful. She told me about growing up in Chapel Hill, how she'd sneak books under her blanket and read with a flashlight after bedtime. I told her about taking apart old radios just to see how they worked. Half the time, I couldn't even get them back together. She laughed at that. A real, belly-deep laugh. Eventually, the subject of exes came up. I took it slow. She was chill about it, said she'd dated a guy in college, Darian. She made it sound like an old photo in a drawer. Nothing messy, just something that used to be. It ended clean, she said. No big drama. We just weren't each other's person. I nodded. Didn't push. It didn't feel like the right time. But I tucked the name away, not out of jealousy, just awareness. By midnight, the crowd had thinned out. Tessa breezed past us, gave Lena a wink, and whispered, "He's the least boring guy in the room." Good pick. Lena blushed, but she didn't back away. At one point, she shivered, just slightly. Without thinking, I offered my jacket. She turned it down at first, but I pressed. When she finally slid her arms into the sleeves, I saw this soft smile cross her lips. Barely there, but real. That image still lives in my head. Like a photo I never needed to take. When I walked her to her car, I figured we'd just say a quick goodbye. Instead, she leaned against the door, tilted her head, and said, "You're not like most guys." Is that a good thing, or a red flag? I joked. She smiled. I'll let you know. Later that night, lying in bed, the scent of her perfume still clinging faintly to the jacket sleeves, I kept replaying that laugh in my head. I wasn't usually the romantic type. I was the logical one in most relationships. But with her, everything had felt effortless. Easy. Warm. Within 2 months, we were inseparable on weekends. Food truck fairs, midnight movies, debates over playlists. She was all about classic soul. I lived for jazz. She introduced me to her sister Camille. Eventually, I brought her to meet Zion, my best friend. Everyone liked her. My mom said she was sharp. My dad? He said she brought light back into my eyes. By the 6-month mark, we moved into a little place in Brookside. 1 bedroom. The heater had a temper. The couch sagged in the middle. But it was ours. On move-in day, she stood in the empty living room, threw her arms up, and shouted, "We made a nest." I laughed, because that's exactly what it felt like. A year and a half later, I proposed. No flash, no grand gesture. Just the 2 of us, barefoot in the kitchen, dusted in flour, making pizza from scratch. I knelt down with a dish towel still slung over my shoulder and pulled out the ring. She said yes with happy tears in her eyes and flour smudged on her cheek. Back then, I really believed I'd found the kind of love you read about. The epic kind. The kind that starts with a laugh by the chips and ends in forever. But forever is a word people throw around too easily. What I didn't know then, what no one tells you, is that sometimes the brightest beginnings echo loudest before things fall apart. If I'd known what was coming, maybe I'd have held on to that laugh a little longer. Not just the feeling of it, but the sound. Because years later, that's all I'd be clinging to, trying to make sense of how something so honest could slip away so quietly. But I wasn't thinking about any of that back then. Back then, I was just a guy falling hard for a woman who laughed like truth and smiled like a promise. That first year of marriage? It was like sunlight spilling through curtains on a lazy Sunday. I'd wake up with her beside me and think, yeah, this is what peace feels like. We found our rhythm without even trying. Morning coffees. Shared playlists. Friendly arguments over the dishwasher versus hand washing. Sure, we had our arguments, nothing major, just the everyday stuff couples go through. But our fights usually ended in soft laughter, lazy, "I'm sorry," and a kiss on the forehead before bed. Our apartment always smelled like cinnamon candles and fresh laundry. It sounded like her humming while she brushed her teeth, or the quiet click of my keyboard at night while she curled up on the couch with a book. Our life wasn't fancy, but it was ours, and that made it feel whole. Home never felt like 4 walls. It felt like Lena. And because of that, everything felt exactly where it should be. Both of our families were just happy we had found each other. Her sister Camille practically became our 3rd roommate. Zion? He turned into her partner for impromptu basketball games. When I sprained my ankle, dinners turned into game nights, and weekends blended into memories. I loved being her husband. She'd give me this look in the grocery store, like I was still the guy she met by the chips and salsa. She used to slip little notes into my laptop bag. "You got this, nerd." I've still got one of them tucked into the folds of my old wallet, between crumpled receipts and old business cards. There was something sacred in how simple our happiness was. But then the flicker started. At first, you don't notice the light changing. You just sense that something in the room feels colder than it used to. That's how it began. Quiet. Subtle. We ran into an old college friend of hers once at a bookstore. The guy casually mentioned Darian, and I watched her whole body tense. Her smile turned stiff, too perfect, too controlled. Even her laugh when he joked about the past sounded off, high-pitched, strained. As we walked away, I teased her, "You sounded like a politician dodging a scandal just now." She chuckled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I haven't thought about him in years," she said, and way too fast. I didn't push. I didn't want to turn into one of those jealous guys, digging into someone's past like it's buried treasure or poison. We all carry stories. I respected hers. I trusted her. But then the holidays came around. That Christmas, Tessa visited us for the first time. She brought wine and that loud laugh of hers that could fill a house. After a couple of glasses, we started swapping old college stories. Lena was relaxed, giggling, loose. And then Tessa said it. "Remember when Darian came to that Halloween party dressed as a zombie professor? You almost dumped your drink on him." Lena laughed too hard. She leaned forward, gripping her wine glass tighter than she needed to. "Oh God. Darian. He was such a mess," she said, biting her lip. "And I think he still has that ridiculous beard." It wasn't the words. It was the way she said them. Like she was trying too hard to seem unaffected. Like she wanted him to sound like a joke so badly, she almost made him one. But deep down, I could tell, she still remembered the map to wherever he was. Later that night, I found her alone on the couch, phone lit up in her hand. She was scrolling through Instagram. I leaned over and asked casually, "Looking at old party pics?" She jumped, locked her screen like a teenager caught red-handed. "Just checking something," she muttered, brushing her hair away. "Was curious if Darian still looks like a raccoon." I forced a laugh. She shrugged. "Yup. Still unfortunate." I didn't press. I just walked into the kitchen and started washing dishes. But the sound of that screen locking, it stuck with me. A quiet alarm that never stopped ringing. From then on, I began to notice things. Tiny changes. Her kisses got shorter. Her replies felt delayed. Even when we curled up on the couch, her body leaned a little farther away than before. The warmth wasn't gone. It was just fading. So I tried harder. Picked up her favorite chocolates at the gas station. Planned a surprise weekend trip to Asheville. Took over her chores so she could breathe. She thanked me. She smiled. But it felt empty, like she was reacting to a gift she didn't ask for. A smile that said, "What am I supposed to do with this?" I kept telling myself it was just stress. Her job had gotten rough. Deadlines, new responsibilities, longer hours. Maybe it was just that. It had to be. Then one night, I came home late from a meeting. She was already in bed, pretending to sleep. But her phone was in her hand, under the covers. Her breathing was too even. Her shoulders too tense. I didn't say a word. I changed clothes, slid into bed beside her, back to back. Stared at the ceiling, counting the seconds between her slow, measured breaths. When she finally fell asleep for real, I turned and looked at her. The moonlight caught her face. She looked peaceful, but I wasn't. My gut was in knots, replaying every look, every moment, every second I might have missed. There's a kind of loneliness that hits hardest when the person you love is lying right next to you. And still, you feel completely alone. That silence? It was growing inside me, but I didn't want to accuse. I didn't want to lose something precious over a guess. She hadn't crossed a line, not really. She was just drifting, distracted, and I refused to become that insecure guy starting fights over shadows. Still, the feeling lingered. The woman who used to light up telling me about her day now hesitated before answering. The one who used to curl into my lap on movie nights now sat at the far end of the couch, eyes glued to her screen, smiling at something I couldn't see. It was like watching a photo fade in real time. Same smile, same face, just less color, less presence, less her. One day I came home early and found her asleep on the couch. Her phone was next to her, unlocked. Nothing on the screen. No notifications. No apps open. Too clean. That scared me more than if I had found something. Because nobody's phone is spotless, unless they want it to be. I placed it back gently, covered her with a blanket, and sat by the window until she woke up. When she finally opened her eyes, she smiled like nothing was wrong. And I smiled back like I wasn't breaking inside. Because that's what love does. It holds on just a little longer. It chooses hope, even when it's hurting. And back then, I didn't see the whole truth. I didn't realize those small cracks were just the surface. That warmth I craved? It hadn't vanished. It had just found somewhere else to go. I only knew one thing for sure. The woman who once filled every room with light now carried shadows behind her smile. And deep down, I feared those shadows had nothing to do with me. There's a difference between being alone and feeling alone. And I learned that the hard way. From the one person I thought would never make me feel either. Lena and I still shared a bed. We still said goodnight, still lived in the same apartment. But somewhere along the way, the connection between us turned into static, familiar noise that no longer carried meaning. It was like reaching for a hand you've held 1,000 times, only to realize it no longer reaches back. The warmth didn't disappear in some dramatic explosion. It just slowly faded, quiet, unannounced, buried under routine silence. She started staying out later. At first, it made sense. Long hours at work, meetings, birthdays, things like that. But the reasons started to blur together. One night it was, Tessa needed to talk. The next, I just had to clear my head. Then came the night she didn't offer any reason at all. She'd just walk in after 10, eyes tired, words half-formed. I tried not to be that guy, the overthinking, hovering husband. I gave her space. But I wasn't blind. The little rituals we once shared quietly disappeared. She stopped making our Saturday pancakes, those mornings she once called sacred. She began sleeping turned away from me, her phone clutched to her chest like a second pillow. She still smiled. But it wasn't the smile meant for a husband. It was the kind you give a coworker in passing. Polite. Distant. One Friday, I got home early and decided to try. I made her favorite dinner, lasagna with extra ricotta, garlic bread toasted just right. I lit candles. Put on Coltrane, her favorite. I wanted to remind her that this place, this home, still carried love. She didn't walk through the door until 11:30. I sat there alone, food gone cold, 2 untouched glasses of wine, and the ache of something slipping through my fingers. When she came in, her face shifted, surprised to see the table set. "Oh," she said, forcing a smile. "You cooked." "I thought we could eat together," I said, standing slowly. "It's been a while." She glanced at the food, then back at me. "I already ate." Those 3 words hit harder than I expected. Not because she missed dinner, but because she hadn't even thought to call. I swallowed the hurt and nodded. "No problem." She didn't ask if I'd eaten. She didn't say thank you. She just kicked off her heels, mumbled something about being tired, and disappeared into the bedroom. I sat there for a long time, just staring at the untouched plates. Eventually, I packed up the leftovers, dumped my wine down the sink, and sat on the edge of the bed. I watched her sleep like she was someone I used to know, a stranger wearing the face of the woman I married. The silence between us became its own language. We both understood it, but neither of us wanted to translate. When I asked how her day went, her replies got shorter. "Fine. Busy. Tiring. No stories. No color. Just vague outlines." Still, I kept trying. Kissed her forehead every morning before I left for work. Brought home little things I thought she might like. But the look in her eyes told me she wasn't really here anymore. Not all the way. It felt like she had already packed her bags emotionally. She just hadn't told me yet. Then one night, while she was in the shower, I saw her phone light up on the nightstand. A notification. She'd left it behind without locking it. I'm not a snooper. Never had been. But something in me needed answers. Not to catch her doing anything. I just needed to understand what was happening to us. I picked it up. It was too clean. No messages. No call logs. No social media. Just a blank slate. Like a phone staged for display. Not real. Not lived in. I know what normal phones look like. They have clutter, random notifications, texts, group chats, memes sent at midnight. But hers? It looked sanitized. I put it down carefully, exactly where it had been. Then I sat there, listening to the sound of water running behind the bathroom door, trying to process the emptiness growing between us. I didn't confront her. What would I even say? Why does your phone look like it's been wiped? Why don't you look at me the way you used to? Why do I feel like I'm sleeping next to someone who already left? So instead, I watched, waited, became quiet in my own home, studied her like a language I used to speak fluently, but now couldn't seem to understand. Then came the moment that broke it all open. It was a Tuesday. She left early for work. I had taken the day off, burned out, sleep-deprived, running on fumes. Around noon, her phone buzzed from the coffee table. She had forgotten it. I let it sit there at first. Didn't touch it. I figured she'd come back for it. But at 2:45, it rang again. "Tessa." I hesitated, then picked up. "Hey," I said. "It's Elias." Lena left her phone at home. There was a pause. Then Tessa said, "Oh, that's weird. I was calling to ask if she was still planning to meet me." My stomach tightened. "Meet you?" "Yeah," she said. "We were supposed to grab drinks. 1 o'clock. She never showed. She hadn't texted. Hadn't called." I cleared my throat. "She told me she was working." Another pause. This one longer. "Oh, I'm sure there's a mix-up." "Yeah," I said, flat. "Probably." I hung up and sat there in the quiet. A single question pressing down on my chest like a boulder. Where was she? When she finally walked in that night, the apartment looked different. No candles. No music. Just me sitting on the couch, holding the remote, pretending to care about the TV. She looked worn out. "Hey," she said. "Long day." I nodded. "Where were you?" She blinked. "At work." "Why?" I didn't move. "Tessa called," I said. "Said you missed your plans." Her whole body froze for half a second. Just long enough for me to see the truth break through. The way her throat tensed. The flicker in her eyes. "I forgot," she said too fast. I had to cover a shift. It slipped my mind. I didn't argue. I stood up and walked past her. "Elias," she said behind me. "Don't make this into something it's not." I stopped, turned to face her. "You already did." She looked at me like she wanted to speak, but had run out of lines. Like the lies had piled up too high for her to keep straight. I waited for the truth. For her to come clean. For anything real. Instead, she turned away and closed the bedroom door behind her. That night, I lay beside her while she slept. Peacefully. Effortlessly. And for the first time in our marriage. I didn't feel safe next to her. I felt like I was waiting for a truth I didn't want to find. But already knew. And the distance? It wasn't growing anymore. It was already here. It was already broken. And slowly, I was beginning to accept it. Whatever we had built, whatever we were still pretending to be, had been cracked in ways I couldn't fully name yet. But I could feel it. In every silent dinner, every turn back, every moment where the air between us felt colder than it used to. It was a Thursday afternoon when everything snapped. I was in the garage, rearranging tools I barely touched anymore. Most of them were still in the original boxes from when we moved in. I'd taken the day off again, not out of exhaustion, but because I couldn't keep faking it. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine, that my wife was still here in body and in heart, when the truth was she'd already started leaving. Then I heard the front door swing open fast, frantic. I stepped out of the garage, wiping my hands on an old rag. She was standing in the hallway, keys still in hand, her face pale, eyes wild. "Elias," she gasped. "I need you to take me to the hospital." I blinked. "What happened?" "Darian," she said, her voice cracking. "He was in a car accident. A bad one." I didn't answer right away. I just stared at her, this woman who'd been slipping away from me inch by inch for months. And all I could think was, why am I the one you're coming to? But I didn't say that. I didn't ask why she didn't call Tessa or Camille or any of the people who would have understood this panic. She came to me, her husband, and part of me hated how automatic my reaction still was. No anger, no hesitation. "Get in the car," I said quietly. She nodded, grabbed her purse, and followed me out. The drive was silent. No music, no small talk, just the sound of the tires rolling and my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't ask how she found out. Didn't ask which hospital. She had already entered the address into the GPS and sat there beside me, hugging herself, trying to keep something inside from falling apart. 15 minutes into the drive, she finally spoke. "I didn't think I'd feel like this," she said, barely a whisper. I kept my eyes on the road. I thought I was over it. I really did. Still, I didn't say a word. When I heard he might not make it, something in me broke open. And then came the words I didn't want to hear. "I still love him." No gasp. No dramatic pause. Just silence, thick and suffocating. She didn't even look at me when she said it. She stared out the window like she hadn't just shattered what was left of us. I said nothing. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter until my knuckles turned white. I don't even know how I kept the car moving forward. The turn signal ticked, the tires hummed. The world kept going like nothing had changed. But inside me, everything stopped. She said it like a fact. Not, "I think I still love him." Not, "This brought back memories." No, "I still love him." Like the feeling had never left. Like it had just been hiding, waiting for tragedy to give it a reason to speak. We pulled into the hospital lot. She unbuckled her seatbelt before I even turned off the engine. "Thank you," she whispered. I didn't respond. She opened the door and ran. Ran across the parking lot like nothing else existed. Like I didn't exist. Like her whole heart was waiting for her inside that building. She didn't look back. Not once. I watched the doors swallow her whole. And for a long time, I just sat there frozen, staring straight ahead. I think I stayed parked for 20 minutes. The same thought circling through my head like a curse. She ran to him. Not me. I didn't go inside. I didn't want to see her at his bedside. Didn't want to see her hand in his or the way she might look at him. With the softness she hadn't shown me in months. I drove home alone. The house was dark when I stepped in. Her coat still hung on the hook by the door. One of her heels was kicked off in the hallway, lying sideways. I stared at it. Funny how the mind locks onto small things when your whole life is splitting open. I walked into the bedroom. Her scent still hung in the air. I sat on the edge of the bed, took a deep breath. And that's when it finally hit me. It wasn't just that she loved someone else. It was that I had been the one holding her through panic attacks. I had stood beside her when she lost her job and felt worthless. I had been her anchor, her shelter, her safe place for 5 years. And in her moment of deepest fear, she didn't run to the man who stayed. She ran to the one who broke her. I sat there for hours. Didn't eat. Didn't turn on the lights. I just stared at the door. Not because I wanted her to walk back through it, but because I needed to know if I was still the person she'd come home to. At 1:07 a.m., the lock clicked. I didn't move. She stepped in slowly, face flushed, eyes red and swollen. She stopped when she saw me sitting there in the dark. "Elias," she said softly, taking a step forward. I stood, walked past her. Didn't even brush her shoulder. She turned as I reached the door. "Please," she whispered. It didn't mean anything. I just got scared. I didn't mean it. But she had. She meant it in the way people mean things when their walls fall down and their truth spills out. Because fear doesn't lie. Her truth had come out in the quietest voice I'd ever heard. But it screamed louder than anything else ever could. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. I didn't slam it. Didn't need to. Some doors don't need to slam to say, I'm done. They just need to shut. The next morning, the house was dead. Not peaceful, just quiet. Like the kind of silence you hear in a graveyard. I sat on the edge of the bed, still in yesterday's shirt, staring at the floor. Her side of the bed looked untouched. The shape of her still there in the sheets. But the warmth? Gone. She was already gone, and the silence made it obvious. No sound of the shower. No scent of hazelnut coffee floating through the air like it used to on lazy Sundays. That had always been her thing, coffee brewing, humming something soulful, usually Lauryn Hill. But this morning, there was only the low hum of the fridge and the click of the hallway clock. Each tick reminding me I wasn't who I used to be anymore. I didn't peek into the guest room to see if she slept there. Didn't look around for a note or call out her name. I knew the answer already. Wherever she was, it wasn't here. Not really. It felt like I was renting space in a marriage that had already expired. Like I'd been sharing my life with someone who'd left months ago, but forgot to take her body with her. She'd checked out, and I was just watching the shadow of the woman I married drift through our home. I packed light. A small suitcase, just what I needed. A couple of jeans, 3 shirts, a hoodie, socks, underwear, my shaving kit. I grabbed my passport and birth certificate, dropped them in with my laptop. Didn't touch anything tied to her. No memories, no keepsakes, no shared items. I wasn't trying to make a point. This wasn't some dramatic exit. It was survival. When I zipped the suitcase shut, my eyes landed on our wedding photo still sitting on the dresser. We were laughing, caught mid-smile. I remembered exactly what she whispered seconds before the camera snapped. Promise me you'll never let this feeling fade. But she had. And now I had no choice but to let it go too. I walked to the kitchen, tore a page from the notepad by the fridge, and wrote 1 sentence. 8 words. No fluff. No signature. Don't worry. You can have you now. I left it on the counter beside her favorite mug, the one that blamed Mondays like it was cute. Then I just stood there for a moment. Took one final look around. The couch where we once stayed up, late watching murder documentaries. The kitchen where she laughed while I taught her to dice onions. The bookshelf we built together on our anniversary trip. It all looked so normal, so harmless. But it felt hollow, like a museum filled with relics from a life that didn't exist anymore. I locked the door, didn't glance back, drove straight to Zion's apartment. He's been my brother in everything but blood since college. Loyal, direct, never the type to force a conversation unless you wanted one. When he opened the door and saw the suitcase, he just stepped aside. Guest room's ready, he said. I dropped the bag in the corner and sat on the edge of the futon. He grabbed 2 beers and handed me one. How bad is it? He asked quietly. I nodded. It's over. We didn't raise the bottles. No big speeches. We just sat side by side in the stillness. Like 2 men listening to the thunder after the damage was already done. Later, we ate pizza in silence. Every time his phone buzzed, my chest tensed, waiting to see her name. But it never came. Not that night. Still, I knew it was coming. The first night without her was brutal in its stillness. Not loud. Not chaotic. Just empty. I didn't break down. Didn't shout. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many nights she kissed me while her heart was somewhere else. How many conversations were half true while I kept giving everything. The next morning, my phone blew up. 5 missed calls. 2 voicemails. All her. I didn't listen. I erased them. But her voice still looped in my head. I still love him. That sentence played like background noise in my brain all day. I tried to stay busy. Went for a walk. Made a half-hearted grocery list with Zion. Even helped him clean his garage. But nothing silenced it. It wasn't just cheating. It wasn't even just betrayal. It was a rewrite. Like our 5 years had been a story she no longer recognized. And in a single moment, she erased it. That afternoon, I sat at his kitchen table and opened my laptop. Started untangling the mess. Joint accounts, subscriptions, emergency contacts, logins. Our lives were threaded together at every corner. Unraveling it was like peeling layers off my own skin. That evening, more text rolled in. Elias, please. Call me. I didn't mean to hurt you. Can we talk? Just once. I shut my phone off. Not to punish her. Just to breathe. It's strange how someone can go from walking out of your life to clawing their way back in the moment they realize you stopped waiting. but I wasn't hers anymore. That night, I finally slept. Not peacefully, but with purpose. Because I'd chosen something. And choices, even painful ones, bring power back into your hands. She had made her choice. Now it was my turn. I wasn't going to battle the past. I wasn't going to fight for space in someone else's memories. And I wasn't going to accept crumbs when I'd been giving her a feast. Letting go wasn't brave. It was survival. Sometimes you pack your truth into a suitcase. Write your goodbye in 8 words. And walk away. Not because you don't love them, but because staying would mean slowly disappearing. I didn't disappear. I walked out with what I still had. Myself. And I left her what she truly wanted. Darian. I left my phone off for 3 days. Not out of fear. Out of clarity. I already knew what would be waiting in the messages. Truth doesn't stay hidden. It hums beneath everything. Even when the screen is black. You can still hear it. I needed the quiet. Zion's place gave me that. I kept a routine. Wake up. Make coffee. Shower. Sit in the little kitchen and scroll past articles I didn't care about. One morning, I tried to read. But the words wouldn't stick. My mind was too full of old moments, too crowded to accept anything new. Zion didn't ask for updates. He gave me space. Sometimes he'd leave stuff outside the door, water, snacks, even a stress ball. Little reminders that I wasn't completely alone. One afternoon, he walked past with his gaming headset on, looked at me, smirked, and said, "Man, you look like someone who just found out his favorite chicken had a second family." And somehow, that made me laugh. Because that's exactly what it felt like. I almost laughed that morning. Almost. Day 3. I took a breath, braced myself, and finally turned my phone back on. The second the screen lit up, it hit me like a wave. Notifications poured in like a dam had burst. In just seconds, the phone buzzed nonstop. 53 missed calls. 12 voicemails. 29 text messages. All from one name. Mariah. I stood there in Zion's kitchen, holding the phone like it was burning through my hand. I didn't open anything right away. I just watched the messages roll in, each one stacking on top of the last. A digital monument built out of panic, regret, and desperation. Eventually, I tapped the first voicemail. I'm not sure why. Maybe some part of me needed proof that it really happened. That the person who broke me was still the same voice I used to fall asleep beside. Her voice came through the speaker, fragile, stammering. "Elias. I don't know if you're getting this. I'm sorry. Please. I didn't mean it." What I said in the car. I was panicking. I wasn't thinking clearly. I closed my eyes. Funny thing about panic, it tells the truth. Not always the kind you want, but the kind that's been sitting in the dark, waiting for a crack. I played another message. "I went to the hospital again today. He's awake now, but I haven't gone in. I can't. I keep thinking about you. About what I said. About your face, when you looked at me after." Then came another, later that night. "I know you must hate me, but I need you to hear this. Darian, he isn't who I want. He was just a chapter 1 never really closed. When the accident happened, everything came flooding back." Her voice grew softer in the next one. "I miss you. I miss how quiet you are, how you make the silence feel like it matters. I miss your dumb humming in the shower. I even miss you correcting my grammar when I text too fast." I stopped listening after that. It wasn't because it didn't hurt. It did, more than I wanted to admit. But it wasn't the lie that broke me. It was the decision. In her rawest, most unfiltered moment, when everything in her heart came rushing out. She didn't reach for me. She reached for him. That was her truth. And now, everything after it just sounded like cleanup. Like emotional PR. Like someone trying to tidy the ruins after the house had already burned down. Later that day, I stepped outside and walked. No destination. Just feet moving through drizzle. The kind of cold rain that doesn't soak you, but still gets under your skin. I passed couples holding hands. Each one a reminder of something I used to have. A language I no longer spoke. Eventually, I found myself sitting on a bench by the dog park. Watching strangers laugh and throw tennis balls like nothing had changed. Because for them, nothing had. Life kept moving. The world didn't hit pause just because mine cracked down the middle. I opened her texts and started scrolling. Most of them blurred together. "I'm sorry. Please talk to me. You don't understand." I was in shock. It was a mistake. "You're the one I love." I stared at that last one the longest. "You're the one I love." But love doesn't live in words. It lives in actions. And her actions said otherwise. You can tell someone you care 1,000 times. But if you run toward another man the second your soul trembles, the words stop meaning anything. They're just noise. Like saying, I love you, while handing someone a blade. Part of me wanted to believe her. Wanted to think the trauma scrambled her, that she didn't mean what she said. That it was a slip, an accident, a misfire. But I couldn't unhear it. She hadn't screamed it. Hadn't said it in anger. She whispered it, like a secret finally escaping. And secrets like that don't come out unless they've been waiting. That night, Zion made spaghetti. We sat on the couch watching some brainless action movie. Midway through, I broke the silence. She wants to fix it. He didn't look away from the screen. Do you? I thought about it. No, I said. I just want her to understand that she shattered something. And just being sorry doesn't put it back together. He nodded. That's clarity. Hurts like hell, but it's clean. Later, lying in bed, I found myself wondering, how many more messages would I wake up to? How many more apologies? How long until she gave up? Until silence returned. Not as punishment. As peace. I never blocked her. I wanted her to see that I wasn't hiding. I just wasn't coming back. Some people think forgiveness means returning. But sometimes forgiveness means choosing not to let it happen again. It means choosing yourself instead. It was a quiet Tuesday when I finally got a text from Camille. Can we talk? Coffee? Just us. I stared at the message for a while. Not because I didn't know what she wanted to say. I did. I just wasn't sure if I was ready to hear it. Camille had always been the in-between. Not too close, not too far. She loved her sister. But she saw her clearly. Maybe more clearly than anyone else ever had. An hour passed before I replied. Sure. Where? She sent the address to a cafe we used to go to together. Back when life was simple. Before silence became my marriage's language. Before I turned into the ghost Lena left behind. I got there early. Picked a booth in the back, away from the windows. The place still smelled like cinnamon and espresso beans. I remembered her favorite order. Hazelnut latte. 2 pumps. Extra foam. I got black coffee, no sugar. I didn't want warmth. I wanted clarity. Camille walked in wearing jeans, a hoodie, no makeup. She looked tired, like someone carrying someone else's burden too long. She paused at the door, unsure, then took a breath and walked over. Hey, she said gently. I nodded. Hey. She sat down across from me, wrapped her hands around her mug. She didn't drink. Her fingers were trembling. I waited. I wasn't going to break the silence. Finally, she said, I'm not here to defend her. Good, I replied. She nodded again, her gaze fixed on the surface of the table. I came because you deserve to know what she wouldn't say. My chest grew tight. She didn't cheat, Camille said gently. Not physically. But she crossed lines. Emotional ones. Deep ones. I leaned back and closed my eyes for a moment. How long? Camille exhaled slowly. It started small. Just a few texts after they ran into each other at Ivy's wedding last year. At first, it was innocent. Catching up. But it turned into late-night messages. Talking about work. About you. About the life she felt stuck in. That word. Settled. I looked at her, voice quiet. She told you that? She did, Camille nodded. Confessed a few months ago. Said it was harmless. Said she just needed someone to talk to, someone who knew her before things became routine. But I knew where it was heading. I warned her. Told her she was walking a line she couldn't keep balancing. One foot in your life, one stuck in the past. Camille's voice faltered. When Darian got hurt, all the feelings she thought she buried came rushing back. She told me she still loved him. I said nothing, just stared into the swirl of my coffee. She didn't mean it like it sounded, Camille said quickly. I raised an eyebrow. I'm not defending her, she added. But she said it like someone drowning. Like she confused the man with the memory. Like she panicked and reached for the version of herself that still felt alive. I didn't respond. I was tired of translating Mariah's chaos into meaning. She's a mess now, Camille went on. Keeps asking me if you'll come back. Keeps saying she didn't realize what she had until it was gone. I let out a bitter chuckle. Funny how people only know what they had after they've wrecked it. Camille wiped her eyes. She's still my sister, Elias. But I told her the truth. She doesn't get to play the victim. She made this mess. She broke the man who always showed up for her. Her words hung heavy in the air. Why are you telling me all this? I asked. You could have stayed out of it. Because I watched the way you loved her, she said. I saw how much of yourself you gave. How you dimmed your light to make space for hers. How you carried the weight when she didn't even realize she dropped it. Her voice wavered. I looked away, swallowing hard. I told her it's over, I said softly. She knows, Camille nodded. She knows if you ever came back, it'd be a miracle. She burned the bridge. Now she's standing in the ashes. I met her eyes. I'm not coming back. Camille didn't flinch, just gave a slow nod. I figured. But you still deserve to hear the truth from someone who wasn't hiding. The silence between us wasn't sharp anymore. It felt spent, worn down. As I stood to leave, Camille reached into her bag and slid something across the table. A photo. A faded Polaroid from our 3rd anniversary. Lena and me at the lake house. Wind in her hair. My arms wrapped around her waist. We were laughing. I couldn't remember what at, just that we were happy. She almost tossed it, Camille whispered. But I kept it. Thought maybe you'd want to remember the part that was real. I stared at the image, my chest aching. I didn't cry, but I felt everything. I tucked the photo into my jacket. Thanks, I said. For what? For being honest. She gave a faint, sad smile. I wish it had gone differently. Yeah, I said quietly. Me too. We stood. No hugs. Just a quiet nod. When I walked out of the cafe, I felt lighter. Not whole. Not fixed. But like someone had finally pulled the last splinter and let the wound breathe. I sat in the car for a few minutes before turning the key. I looked down at the photo again. Our smiles. That moment. That version of us was gone now. But I wasn't angry. I was just done. Some truths show up in pain. Others in silence. But the hardest ones come from the people who watched it all happen. And finally couldn't keep quiet anymore. Young, reckless, and untouched by the weight of consequences. That's how she described her past. But that doesn't mean I wanted him, she added quickly. I wanted you. I wanted us. I repeated her words, bitterly. You wanted me? And yet, you erased messages, lied about where you were, it an emotional affair. And when the man you claimed meant nothing nearly died, you ran straight to him. Her throat tightened. She went silent. I didn't go there to start anything, she murmured. No, I said. You went because your heart never stopped whispering his name. I was just the background noise. She shook her head hard. You weren't noise. You were everything. You were safe. You were home. I let out a small, cold laugh. People don't run home when they're scared. They run to what they still fantasize about. She looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. I believe that, I said. Her eyes snapped up. I believe you didn't set out to break me. But love isn't judged by intentions. It's measured by the result. And your result was a wrecking ball. Mariah looked like she was collapsing into herself, shoulders hunched, hands clenched in her lap. I know I don't deserve another chance, she said, barely audible. You don't, I replied softly, but firmly. The words hung there, final. She didn't breathe, just stared. I'm not here to hurt you, I said. I'm not here to drag it out or scream or cry. I'm just here to close the door you left wide open. She nodded. You want a divorce? I already spoke to a lawyer, I said. You'll get the paperwork this week. I'm not going to make it ugly. I'm not taking anything that's yours. I just want peace. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Then, through tears. I didn't stop loving you. I shook my head. No, you just didn't love me enough to protect what we had. And that's worse. We sat in silence after that. A waitress dropped off a pitcher of water, caught the tension, and slipped away without a word. I still wake up and reach for you, Mariah whispered. Then I remember. You're gone. I stared forward. I wake up and remember I'm free. That used to scare me. Now it just feels clean. She looked shattered, but her feelings weren't my responsibility anymore. Not after months of silence, distance, and indecision. She made her choice. So did I. I still have the anniversary gift, she said quietly. The one you never opened. It's in my nightstand. I shrugged. Maybe give it to him. Her head snapped up. That's not fair. Neither was this, I said. Don't reduce me to one mistake, she snapped. You know I'm more than that. No, I said, rising from my seat. You were more. But you chose to be less. She flinched. I didn't say it to hurt her. I said it because it needed to be said. I reached into my coat and pulled out a small envelope. Set it gently on the table in front of her. Her name was written on the front in my handwriting. What's this? She asked. Closure, I said. Everything I still needed to say, but don't want to say out loud anymore. She didn't touch it. Just stared, cheeks flushed, her fingers trembling near the rim of her glass. I wish I could go back, she whispered. You don't get to, I said quietly. I walked away. Left her sitting there, crying, lips parted, hand frozen in place. My name probably echoing in her head. But she hadn't said it when it mattered. Outside, the air was cool, the sky soft and gold as the sun dipped behind the buildings. I stood there for a moment, breathing in freedom like it was something new. Not victory, just release. There was no going back. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. The handwriting stopped me. Curved. Neat. Intentional. I'd seen that script before, back when she used to leave little notes in my jacket, or stick them on the mirror before I left for work. I used to love her handwriting. Now I wasn't sure I even wanted to read it. There was no return address. Just my name. Not Elias with a heart next to it, like before. Just black ink on an envelope that somehow felt heavier than it should have. I sat on Zion's couch, staring at it. My suitcase still in the corner, unpacked. Clothes untouched. Drawers empty. Part of me still believed I was going back. That this was temporary. But this letter, it felt like the final nail. Still, I opened it. 4 pages. Handwritten. No corrections. No scribbles. Every line looked like it had been carefully thought out. The first sentence hit harder than I expected. I don't expect this to change anything. She continued. By the time you read this, maybe you've already filed. Maybe you've moved on. Maybe I've lost you forever. But I needed to write this. Not for your forgiveness, but for your understanding. And, if I'm being honest, for my own sanity. I shifted in my seat. I've replayed everything in my head, she wrote. Every conversation. Every step. Every time I pulled away. I chose silence over honesty. Distance over vulnerability. Safety over truth. And then this. Darian was safe. He never asked me to grow. He never pushed me to be more. He lived in the memory of who I was at 22, wild, adored, untested. When he got hurt, something cracked open. It wasn't about love. It was about escape. That line sat heavy in my chest. It wasn't about love. It was about escape. That made sense. But it didn't fix anything. Still, I kept reading. You were the real thing. The raw, messy, beautiful thing. You saw all of me and still chose me. That scared me more than I ever admitted. Because when love is real, you have to rise to it. You have to stay. You have to show up. And I didn't know how to hold on to something that honest without breaking it. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, the paper trembling slightly in my grip. When I said I loved him, I didn't mean it the way it sounded, but I know how you heard it. And I don't blame you for walking away. In fact, I respect it, because you always honored the truth even when it hurt. She paused there. And I did too, because that, right there, was the part that finally told me she saw it, that she understood who I was all along. The better half of us. I don't ask for another chance. I only ask that, in some quiet part of you, you remember we were real. That line hit like a final breath in a room I'd already left. She admitted it, finally, what I had known but needed to hear. She saw the difference between us. Between the man who stayed and the one she ran toward. Even if it came too late. She wrote about that car ride. How she wished she could take the words back, rewind the moment, look me in the eye and not turn her face toward the past. But I remembered it too clearly. I was the one sitting beside her, holding the wheel, while she was chasing a ghost with her heart already gone. She said, you stopped everything, the dinners, the forgiveness, the waiting. Damn right I did. Because I had to. She kept writing about the little things, my stupid cereal box obsession, the dog's birthday songs. How our silence used to feel like peace instead of distance. Too late. That rhythm she missed? She shattered it. Her final words. Even if we ended in silence, we lived in love for a while. And it mattered. I folded the letter without a tear, without a second thought of returning. It didn't change the ending, but it gave the past its place. We were something once. Flawed. Fragile. But real. And now done. I dropped her letter in a small wooden box with the rest of the things that no longer belonged in my hands. Not trash. Not treasure. Just memory. That was the last night I let her echo in me. I moved out on a gray, forgettable Wednesday. No symbolism. No emotion. Just a truck, a few boxes, and no more looking back. Zion handed me a coffee. So this is it. This is it. To gross pain and clean exits. We clinked cups. She signed. A week ago. He didn't ask for details. He didn't need to. He'd watched the whole storm tear through me without saying a word. That was enough. Fairgrove was small, quiet, and mine. No scent of her perfume. No memory tangled in curtains. No history. Just me. And Moxie, half border collie, half chaos, racing through the house like she'd been waiting her whole life to exist outside someone else's wreckage. I didn't unpack her letter. Didn't reread it. Didn't burn it either. It stayed in the box, where it belonged. One night, Coltrane spun on the record player. I sat by the lake, watching still water hold silence better than she ever could. I thought of her once. Not in pain. Not in longing. Just as a chapter I'd closed with a steady hand. She'd entered my life laughing, and exited whispering someone else's name. And that was all the closure I needed. I signed up for woodworking. Not to build furniture. To build a life. A week later, Zion called. She reached out. I already knew what he'd say next. She's dating again. I nodded. Good. No anger. No ache. Just peace.